Okay, this video was for the repair of an Anderson storm door. This is the full glass model. And what happened with this is it originally came with dampers, but my street is so windy that what happened was, within a year of buying it, this door, the dampers got broken because the wind would whip the door open. Now, it would only do that if it's not latched. The dampers are supposed to pull it closed to latch, but it's very difficult sometimes to adjust the tension, so it does that. It wouldn't latch 100%. So sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. Okay, on the occasions that it wouldn't, and sometimes it's operator error, but you know, the door is not going to be latched 100% of the time. Then the wind whips it open. When it gets to the full extent, the damper, in this case, in one case at the bottom, it ripped the damper out of the screw holes. Okay, and also did damage. You can tell to the hardware. That's ripped. The hinge actually was fine, but that ripped the metal piece there. On the upper part, the hardware stayed in, but the damper got bent, and it did also damage to that hinge. Okay, that upper hinge. If you can see it, maybe I can't see it. Now, I've subsequently replaced this with the spring-loaded one. It works in this application. Okay, it doesn't close all by itself, but it doesn't destroy itself. One of the dampers, the rod got bent, and this one I straightened out. I might have straightened it out and actually reinstalled it because I tried to put up with this, but it failed twice in the same year, and then I realized it simply was not going to work. This damper, I don't know, it doesn't look bent, so this one might have just pulled out. And they were installed with very sturdy screws and hardware. On the upper one, aside from doing damage to the hinge, it actually did damage to the wood casing of the door to which it was attached. See, this door is attached with this, what you might call a furring strip. It has to be built out a slight amount, just 1/4 of an inch, so the door doesn't hit the other door. And it actually split the casing and the furring strip where those upper screws get in. Okay, aside from making some sagging on the hinge itself now is not 100% restored. Okay, it still works, but it's been pulled. And if you look at the gap between the door and the hinge on the top and the bottom, you'll see the door it's not 100%. It's slightly crooked. Okay, now, after it was damaged, the door was sagged because of that damage to such a great extent. But number one, I had to file the lock even to get it so I could lock it, close it. And at the top, you can see the damage there where when you did close the door, okay, it was hitting against that because when it's sagged down now, it's cocked and it doesn't, you have to actually you would have to actually physically lift it up to get it to close. Okay, now with this repair so far, it actually will close. Okay, now, but today I'm actually just completing this repair, and what I'm doing on to complete the repair, which is not going to be 100%, but it's going to be okay because it's working okay, is you can see here the screws on this upper hinge. The upper hinge was actually distorted in these accident events. The second hinges, if you look at them, they look, you know, really new. They're nice and flush. The upper hinge, you can tell, has been distorted, okay? Now, when I tried tightening these screws, they're self-tapping screws, sheet metal screws, and the threads, you can only apply a certain amount of force. This screw has been damaged to the extent where I can't tighten it, okay? It'll just spin around. So what I've done is I've replaced this with a larger diameter sheet metal screw and a lock washer just so I can snug it up, okay? The hinge itself is still not completely flat, but that's okay. I just want to get that snug so it doesn't sag and continue to droop, okay? So that's all I'm doing right now. I'll hit pause and I'll show you the screws that I've selected. Okay, this is the original self-tapping screw. And this is the one that I'm going to replace it with. I tried to find a screw that was slightly bigger in diameter So it had a similar pitch on the thread and a similar depth so that it would go in the same hole and I wouldn't have to worry about maybe bumping into something. I also would like to use a lock washer. Now I looked at my collection of screws from my kitchen drawer. I pulled up a couple screws from my basement collection. I checked the screw collection that I inherited from my friend, along with his collection of lock washers. His collection is better than mine. And what I found was he had a little set of screws. They actually had individual barcodes on them. Not that I didn't need that, but anyway, from that set I found this one. That's the one I used on there's two screws on the upper hinge, and I selected this one. Now I'm going to install this on the upper one. I like it because when I did the upper one, I was able to snug the screw, which is to say, I was able to apply pressure on the screwdriver until it was tight. Tight enough to lock the lock washer, and it sat firmly. Whereas on this one, it just spun around. I could tell I had stripped out the threads, and it wasn't holding very well. Okay, I'm going to hit pause, and I'm going to install this. Okay, I've installed that screw with the lock washer on the bottom, and you can tell that the hinge is still, it's not perfectly flat. It was damaged, but I am able to tighten that significantly, and the lock washer is flattened out, for example, and that tells you that it is applied under a certain amount of tension, and hopefully it won't loosen up. Okay, and so I'm hoping this repair will last. I'm going to reattach my hinge here. Then you can see that the door is not as good as it was when it was new. There's still a little bit of sag, but there might have been even a teeny bit when it was new. But if you close it, of course, even without this repair, it did still, close and latch without having excessive amounts of lifting is what you need to do. What I'm looking for here is to make this repair really just more robust so that I don't get continued sag. Okay, so anyway, that's it. Hope this might help you if you want to get rid of those dampers. Okay, thanks, bye.